She entered the forest before the rooster crowed. The air was wet. The leaves whispered secrets from the night. Her basket swung at her side, and her feet moved fast. The trees knew her. The river knew her. But something else was waiting. The river whispered, but the bushes held a secret. Something didn't feel right. The birds had stopped singing. Even the insects were silent. Then, muffled cries. Not from a child. Not from an animal. From a man. She froze. Cries from the thorns froze her in her steps. She dropped low, crawling behind the tall grass. Through the thorns, her eyes found them, 3 masked men. One held a rope. Another held a machete. The third tightened the knots on a bleeding stranger in a torn city suit. Blood on his shirt, fear in his eyes. His mouth was taped. His wrists were tied. His shoes were gone. He couldn't run. He couldn't scream. Only his eyes moved. Wild, terrified. They spoke of ransom, power, and a city name. The tallest one said, "His father will pay, or he'll rot here." Another laughed, "The city will never find him in this place." Then they turned toward the river to bring their boat. Nyasha gripped her knife, hidden in the shadows. Her hands were wet with sweat. Her heart slammed like a drum in her chest. She waited, counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. Then she moved. When the men left, she moved like smoke. Silent, quick, no second thoughts. Her fingers found the ropes. The knots fought back. Her hands shook as she cut through the ropes. The blades slipped once. Blood mixed with dirt. Still she worked. Still she didn't stop. The stranger groaned, his mouth too swollen to speak. His eyes begged her for something she didn't understand. Hope, maybe. Or just not to leave him. He clutched her wrist, eyes wide with panic. She didn't pull away. She helped him up. His body leaned on hers. The baobab tree above them groaned with the wind, heavy and old. She whispered, "Come quickly, before they return." A shadow shifted behind them. The kidnappers were back. She led him to the shed where only goats once slept. The roof was broken. The walls leaned like tired elders. But it was dry, and it was hidden. She made a bed from banana leaves. He lay down without a word. Banana leaves became his bed, and silence his shield. His breath was shallow. His body still shook. But his eyes watched her every move, as if she was the only thing left in the world that made sense. She slipped in at dawn with porridge and crushed herbs. The herbs smelled sharp. She remembered her mother's hands grinding them under moonlight. She cleaned his wounds and turned her face when he winced. Gossip rose like smoke. She walks with a spirit man. Women at the well whispered. Men at the drumhouse pointed. A girl seen in the forest with a stranger, they said. Stepmother's eyes narrowed. Cursed places breed cursed girls. She spat near the shed and muttered a warning. The last girl who danced with shadows never came back. The sacred drum spoke. Moon fast was upon them. The sound rolled through the village like thunder without rain. All girls were expected at the ritual. No girl could be absent. Nyasha lied softly. "I am weaving mats." Her voice did not shake, but her stomach did. She turned away quickly, afraid her eyes would reveal the truth. In the dark, the stranger whispered, "My name is Obei-sai." His voice cracked like dry leaves. He reached out, gripping her hand with quiet fire. "Tell no one, or I die again." The owl hooted twice, loud and near. The spirits were listening. Her hands trembled, but she nodded once. Her heart knew. This was no ordinary man. He came with blood and silence, but something bigger followed him. She returned with warm porridge, but the shed stared back, empty. They said she danced naked with spirits in the dark. They said her eyes had changed, that her shadow walked separate from her feet. The lies grew teeth, and the teeth bit deep. At the well, the chief's wife spat on her feet. The water spilled, the buckets rolled, but no one picked them up. No one said her name. Her stepmother slapped her before the drummers could blink. The slap rang louder than the morning bell. Everyone looked. No one stopped it. "You shame this house," echoed across the compound. Her wrapper was still wet from washing, her hands still red from grinding. But her stepmother saw only disgrace. Nyasha lowered her eyes, but not her spirit. Her lips stayed shut, her back stayed straight. But inside, the silence burned. "Spirit lover," her half-siblings shouted between laughter. They danced in mockery. They clapped as if mocking spirits would bring blessings. She walked past the market, alone, unseen, unspoken to. The mango seller turned away. The fish cleaner stopped slicing. Her presence was a shadow no one welcomed. Even the friend who once shared her calabash turned his back. His eyes met hers for a second. Then they dropped, like stones into a river. She cried beneath the sacred mango tree of her mother's bones. The same tree where stories used to be told. The same tree where lullabies once lived. Her tears sank into the dirt that once held her mother's hands. The wind whispered in the branches. Truth always rises. The leaves trembled. The roots held still. She listened. She breathed. She returned home, and found a city jacket at her door. He returned limping, like a ghost who knew her name. His clothes still torn, his breath still shallow. But his eyes held purpose now. "You saved me," he whispered from the shadows. His voice didn't shake, but it carried the weight of death undone. He begged for shelter until sunrise could shield him. Just one more night, one more chance to disappear into the world he once ruled. A lion-shaped scar burned bright on his shoulder. Old, deep, and proud, she stared, her breath caught. Nyasha gasped. The tale of the vanished city lion was true. The one they said would vanish in shame and return in silence. That tale lived in her grandmother's voice. He offered her gold, but she replied with silence. Her hands didn't reach for the coins. Her eyes didn't blink. She simply turned and picked up the pestle. She taught him to grind millet like her father once did. The rhythm slow, the dust rising. His fingers blistered, but he kept going. He walked barefoot, and the dust clung to his pride. The village dirt showed no mercy, not even to city feet. They sat beneath the stars, trading dreams and fears. She told him of rivers and trees. He told her of towers and traffic. She sang her mother's lullaby, and a shooting star answered. It arched across the sky like a blessing from the ancestors. They both watched, silent still. He said, "The world is louder there, but it feels empty." His voice cracked like dry bark. The baobab tree stood guard as secrets passed between them. Its roots held their silence. Its leaves drank the truth. Then, footsteps in the grass, sharp and unforgiving. A sound no spirit made. Her stepmother stood holding a machete, eyes full of fire. Her stepmother pointed and screamed, "She calls spirits into our home." The words tore through the compound like thunder. Neighbors stepped back, eyes locked. Silence fell before the storm rose. The chief's guards arrived with spears and no questions. They grabbed Nyasha by the arm. Her wrapper dragged through the dust. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Obesai vanished through the back, hidden by moonlight. One step into the forest, and he was gone. Only the trees knew where he ran. Nyasha was dragged barefoot to the village fire circle. Her feet bled. The ground was hot. But she walked upright, even as whispers hissed behind her. The elders formed a ring. Drums echoed like thunder. The sky watched in silence. The fire waited for truth. A spirit mask was lowered before the flames. Its carved eyes stared without blinking. Its mouth held no mercy, no smile. The ancestral priest raised his staff. Darkness must answer today. His voice cracked like a split log. His shadow danced behind him. A bowl of fire was lit. Judgment by flame had begun. Smoke curled like snakes. The circle tightened. If she burns, she lies, the elders declared. If she does not, the spirits have spared her. Nyasha whispered a prayer no one could hear. Her lips moved. Her fingers trembled, but her face stayed strong. She reached out. Her fingers dipped into fire. The flames danced around her skin. The crowd leaned in. The flames licked her skin, but left no mark. Not a single blister. Not a single scream. She pulled her hand back untouched. Gasps rose like smoke. Heads turned. Mouths opened. But before the priest could speak, her stepmother howled. She bewitched the flame. A goat collapsed without warning. Eyes wide, breath gone. It fell beside the fire, stiff and still. The drummer stopped. The priest turned slowly. The ancestors had spoken, but their voice was not yet finished. At dawn, a leopard's print stained the mud near the shed. The shape was perfect, deep. No one saw the beast, but its steps told the story. "It is a spirit's mark," the villagers cried in fear. Women covered their children's faces. Elders spat to the ground. A curse had been left behind. The ancestral priest declared, "The land must be cleansed." His voice shook. The spirits had been offended, and someone had invited them. Nyasha was seized and bound to the sacred judgment tree. Her arms stretched above her. The bark bit her skin, but she did not cry. The sky broke. Rain fell like morning from the heavens. The drops hit the ground like drumbeats. The earth swallowed her footprints. Lightning struck close enough to make the tree shiver. The flames in the circle hissed. The wind roared through the branches. Villagers watched from afar, whispering of death and curse. No one stepped forward. No one reached out. Not even the ones who once laughed with her. A small child crept through the grass with a calabash of water. Barefoot, brave. She placed the bowl by Nyasha's feet and ran without a word. She drank in silence, hands still bound, eyes to the sky. Her lips barely moved, but her soul whispered louder than thunder. From the hills, a lone drumbeat echoed, sharp, final, ominous. The kind that meant judgment was near. In the shadows, a village boy watched. He didn't move. He didn't speak. But his hands were clenched, and his eyes burned. It was Obesai in disguise. At midnight, Obesai crept to the sacred tree. The guards had dozed. The wind masked his steps. The spirits held their breath. He loosened the ropes and whispered, "We must go now." Her wrists were raw, her eyes wide, but she nodded without a word. He rubbed river clay on her burns. The earth would heal her. The clay was cool, thick. It covered pain like a mother's touch. She winced but did not stop him. They slipped into the forest beneath a moonless sky. Each footfall was a prayer. Each breath a gamble. Owls called from above. "The spirits are watching," Nyasha murmured. Their wings sliced the darkness. Their eyes glowed with knowing. Branches snapped beneath their feet, but they didn't stop. Behind them, the village was shrinking. Ahead, only trees, wind, and whispers. They found the river, and a canoe cracked like a widow's heart. It leaned to one side, wounded and waiting. Obesai fixed the hull with a thorn tree branch and rope strips. His hands bled. His sweat mixed with the mud. But he worked until it held. They pushed off just as the dogs' barking grew nearer. The bank disappeared behind mist. The river claimed them. Mist curled around them. The river hid them like a blanket. Silence swallowed their breath. Even the stars held back. A crocodile swam beside them without a sound. Its eyes blinked once, then vanished beneath the water. No threat. No help. Just witness. Obasai whispered. If we survive, I'll change your life forever. His voice was steady, but his eyes searched the banks. A sudden splash. The canoe tilted, screamed, and gave way. Nyasha floated like a leaf, silent on the river's breath. Her arms limp, her eyes closed. The water carried her like it remembered her name. Obasai dove through the water, grabbing her before the current took her. His arms wrapped around her waist. His feet found the riverbed. He dragged her to the bank, mud clinging like second skin. She coughed once. Then stillness. Around them, only silence. No birds. No wind. They awoke in a forest where even birds refused to sing. The trees leaned in. Their trunks were wide with time. Their roots whispered secrets into the ground. The trees were older than memory. The ground whispered in roots. The light barely touched the leaves. The air carried no scent. An old woman appeared, her eyes white with knowing. She did not walk. She arrived, as if the forest allowed her to be seen. She said, "Only the ancestors bring you here, not fear." Her voice was dry, but it rang like a bell in the mist. To Nyasha, she handed a red cloth. "Tie this when truth finds you." The fabric was rough, but warm, like it had waited for her. To Obasai, she gave a lion tooth carved by fire. He held it tightly. It pulsed in his hand, like a drumbeat trapped in bone. They entered the mist, step by step, as drums beat from the hills. The sound was far, but it knew them. Far behind, hunters found a footprint, not made by man. The city lion lives. The news roared louder than any drum. From radio to roadside, every voice echoed his name. Obasai was alive, and the world knew. The village that called her, which now hung its head. Gossip stopped. Tongues tied themselves. Even the boldest began to whisper in corners. Children stopped chanting her name in mockery. Now they watched in silence. Her shadow, once laughed at, now moved with weight. Nyasha's stepmother shook in her hut, struck by sickness and fear. Her hands trembled. Her mouth spoke in fragments. Her guilt had found her before judgment did. The ancestral priest dreamed of drums, but no hands beat them. In the dream, the sound came from the ground, from beneath the tree roots, from below the graves. The dream spread like smoke. Judgment had not ended yet. The ancestors were not done speaking. The truth had risen, but the fire had not cooled. The village chief summoned elders to plan a cleansing ritual. A ritual of smoke, water, and silence. But it would not wash away what was written in the wind. In the city, Obasai polished his cane and called his guards. They stood tall in suits and silence. Men who had seen war and peace. He told Nyasha, "We walk back with our heads high." His voice held thunder. She looked away and whispered, "They will never forgive me." Her voice was soft, but steady. Obasai replied, "Then let the truth speak louder than their lies." At sunset, a rider arrived with an envelope, sealed with a lion's crest. They returned in silks, not rags, with cameras and guards in tow. The wind carried their steps. The dust did not touch their clothes. The village froze. Children hid. Elders turned their faces away. No drums welcomed them. No voices rose in greeting. Shame walked ahead of them. The chief bowed, but could not meet Obasai's eyes. His lips moved, but no words came. His pride had cracked, and everyone could see it. Obasai said, "I demand a circle of truth now." His voice did not shout, but it struck like thunder. The ancestral mask was brought out and placed in the dust. Its carved eyes stared through lies. Its mouth promised silence until truth spoke. The drums beat low, not in celebration, but in shame. The rhythm moved like regret. Slow, heavy. The people formed a ring, eyes wide, mouths shut. The same mouths that once cursed. Now they waited. Nyasha was called forward to speak before all. She stepped into the circle with bare feet and an upright back. She told of her bruises, her silence, and the lies that bled her. Every word cut deeper than the last. Not just to her stepmother, but to the crowd that watched it happen. The crowd whispered, some in regret, some in denial. The wind carried their shame into the trees. Her stepmother tried to stand, but her body gave way. Her knees buckled, her head bowed, her name broke. The ancestral priest raised his staff. Let the ancestors judge this day. The night court gathered beneath flame and shadow. The fire crackled in the center. Faces circled it, painted by flickers of red and gold. Firelight danced on the spirit mask as drums beat low. The mask glowed with heat and warning. It watched without blinking. The priest invoked the ancestors with sacred powder and chant. He spoke names not uttered in years. He called the ones buried deep to rise and see. A clay pot shattered without a hand. The spirits were angry. The crack rang through the circle. The flames hissed. Even the dogs fell quiet. Villagers trembled. Even the drummers missed a beat. The rhythm broke. The silence grew heavy. The fire seemed to lean closer. Nyasha's stepmother fell to her knees and spoke the truth. Her voice shook. Her face was wet. She was no longer fierce. I feared her mother's spirit in her eyes, she cried. I feared what I could not control. So I turned the village against her. The priest raised his hand. Fear gave birth to evil. His staff touched the ground. The earth thudded back. He declared her cursed, banished beyond the village gates. She would walk where no one waited. No fire, no drum, no name. The people watched in silence as she was led away. No cries, no goodbyes, just the sound of feet brushing dust. The chief stood and returned Nyasha's family land to her name. The paper sealed with ash. The words spoken before fire. Obasai stepped forward. Let this village learn. His voice was steady. His eyes held no hate, only truth. He promised to rebuild the school where truth will be taught. A place for daughters, for voices, for those buried by fear. The carved lion tooth was placed on the chief's stool, justice reclaimed. The symbol of power had returned, but with new hands. Nyasha stepped into the circle, ready to speak her final truth. Obasai knelt before her, city pendant in his hands. The chain shimmered like a road paved in gold, but his eyes held something simpler. Hope. Come with me, he said. Not as a guest, as my equal. His voice was soft, but the words carried weight. Nyasha looked at the pendant, then at the hills she knew. The hills that watched her suffer. The paths that knew her barefoot steps. Her fingers found the red cloth given by the forest woman. It was still folded, still warm, still full of meaning. The wind stirred, carrying whispered words through the baobab leaves. They rustled not from weather, but from wisdom, from something unseen. She closed her eyes, remembering the river, the rope, the flames, remembering the girl they tried to silence, and the woman she had become. Let me choose the path, she said, not the riches. Her voice did not shake. Her back did not bend. Obasai lowered his head and smiled without regret. He knew the strength before him. He had seen it long before the village did. She walked to the fire, the red cloth in her palm. Each step was a vow, each breath a goodbye to fear. Flames reached up as she let go. A new school rose where ash once lay. The walls were fresh. The roof was strong. The windows welcomed the sun. Children sang her name as they skipped through dust paths. No longer whispers, no longer shame, just songs that echoed with joy. The priest spoke softly. Spirits send messengers in rags. His voice did not preach. It honored, and the villagers listened. Nyasha walked the halls where lies once lived. Now truth echoed. The rooms carried her voice. The blackboard bore her name. Her stepmother took the long road out, never to return. No one followed. No one called her back. The baobab tree bloomed. 5 seasons of silence broken. Its flowers opened wide. Its branches reached high. The ancestors were pleased. Obasai built a clinic and named it Nyasha's Light. A place for healing. A place for girls who had lost their voice. Villagers who once mocked now knelt for blessings. They brought yams. They brought cloth. They brought silence and sorrow. Nyasha sat beneath the tree, telling girls, "You are not small." Her words were soft, but they stood like mountains. In every lesson, her bruises became bridges to wisdom. The past did not chain her. It lit the path forward. As the sun set, a lion roared from the hills. She walked alone to the grave beneath the old mango tree. The same path she once walked with empty hands. But not today. In her hands, the lion tooth and the faded red cloth. Symbols of battles fought, truths chosen, paths walked by courage, not fear. She placed them gently on the earth that held her mother. The soil was soft, the air still, the sky watching. "I am not what they said," she whispered. "I am what you saw." Her voice cracked, but her spine stayed straight. The wind rose, lifting her hair like a blessing from the sky. It circled her shoulders. It kissed the ground. A butterfly landed on her hand, soft as forgiveness. Its wings didn't flap. It simply stayed, as if it too had waited for this moment. Obasai arrived silently, holding a crown of carved gold. It shone, but his eyes watched only her. He offered it, but she shook her head with a smile. Not in rejection, in knowing. She lowered the crown beside the tooth and the cloth. All 3 rested together. Not claimed, not worn, just honored. 3 symbols together. Pain, power, and truth now laid to rest. A voice echoed like wind through leaves. The strongest roots grow from buried pain.